Well, good morning, you guys, and welcome back to the Kneady Homesteader channel and our second video here on making bread for bread baking for beginners workshop. Today we are going to be making baguettes. All right, so let's get started. I have you already aimed at my bowl. I will put the ingredients again on the screen. And so we're going to get started here, okay? All right, so I'm going to kick back. When I say kick back, I like my hook to the back of my bowl, okay? And then the first thing that we're going to add to this is going to be our yeast, all right? And we are going to add 1 tablespoon of yeast. Again, this is going to be the same exact recipe as what we used last week, so nothing new. I just want you guys to be able to experience making something else that's beautiful, that will impress your friends and family. Because I know a lot of people, their families were very excited with homemade bread for the first time ever last week. All right, 1 tablespoon of sugar. To that, we're going to add 2 cups of warm water. Okay, we want to wake up that yeast. I say make it as warm as a baby bottle. And then to this, we are going to be adding, well, it's going to be 4 to 5 cups of all-purpose flour, okay? We are going to start with 4, and then we will work our way up if we need to. So I'm going to bring my flour bucket over here. And remember, you're going to level off your flour, okay? So fill up your 1 cup, and then with the back of a knife, kind of get off the excess so that you have 1 level. Don't pack it down or anything like that, okay? And then you're going to go ahead and then add that to your bowl, okay? So I'm going to zoom you back over here because it's just easier for you guys to see what's going on in my bowl so you can compare it to yours when you make bread. Because I think this is the biggest struggle for folks making bread is what it's supposed to look like and what it should feel like. And again, as the more you make bread, the easier this will become for you. You'll just know. You'll see it, you'll feel it, you'll know when it's ready, okay? Okay, so now this is going to be 4, and then I'm going to reserve another cup off to the side, and we will add it as we need it. All right, and now there is a certain way I talked about last week that you want to layer your ingredients into your bowl because salt can affect your yeast, okay? It can actually almost kill it, if you will. It can prevent your bread from rising. And so people that end up with really dense, dead dough, sometimes it can just be something as simple as putting the salt in with it and it affected the yeast. So you want your yeast first, then, and I'm using instant, okay, because it's easier for beginners. You're going to lay down your yeast, your sugar, then your water. Then you're going to lay your flour on top. And as you can see, we're already waking up the yeast. It's getting nice and bubbly. Okay, now to that, we're going to add our salt. And we are adding 2 teaspoons of salt. I'm using a sea salt. Okay. But if you have table salt is fine. Okay, so 2 teaspoons, and you see I'm laying that right on top. So it's not touching the yeast at all. And then we're going to add 3 tablespoons of olive oil. Okay. Like I said, if you want to try different ingredients, you know, Google it. I'm keeping very simple for you guys. So we are not altering from this recipe at all. And I would just strongly suggest you don't if you're new to bread baking, because every time you alter a recipe, you you can run into problems. And if you have never made bread before, you're not going to know how to fix those problems or what's causing the problems. It's going to be harder for you to figure out. So that is it, okay? A tablespoon of yeast, 2 cups of water, a tablespoon of sugar, 4 to 5. We're going to start with 4 cups of all-purpose flour, 2 teaspoons of salt, 3 tablespoons of olive oil, and that's it. And I've lifted up my bowl and we're ready to turn on our mixer. In a Kitchenaid mixer, when you have the dough hook on or the kneading tool, you don't ever want to knead past a level 2. But read your, I know that's what it is for the professional or the Pro Line series. I'm not sure what that is for the artisans. So, you know, check your manual just to make sure. And that is a level 1. And that is a level 2. And now we're going to watch this dough come together. Now what was nice about the live on Sunday is that I could show you how long it takes and exactly what we were looking for. And do that with you as you were making your own bread, which was really, it was super exciting. I loved doing it was almost like a baking class. It was so much fun. Okay, so we're just gonna watch this come together, and then I'm going to grab just a little bit more flour. Now, I never measure how much extra flour it takes. You can if you want. I just add flour until I know that my dough feels right, it looks right, and it's ready to go. So we want a dough ball that is not sticky, does not come off in our hands. A little bit of tacky is okay, as long as it doesn't end up on your fingers. And we want a clean mixing bowl, okay? It's not going to come out perfectly clean, but when we mean clean, we mean not a bunch of goop on the sides. So as you see, it's coming together, but it is still sticky. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm just going to tap in, and I do like, you know, a tablespoon or 2 tablespoons at a time, okay? If you use a little coffee measurer, you can pick this up for like $1 at Walmart. This will prevent you from adding too much flour, because if you add too much flour, you're going to have a really dense and tough bread dough, okay? So what I would suggest is, if you want to really start making bread and learn about it, get yourself a really good bread baking book. I have videos on my favorite bread baking books. I will leave a link up above to that video. And or go to the library and pull some books on bread and really learn about the science. It's, you know, it's like canning. There is a science behind it. So we're just going to tap in a little bit of flour as I see that it's still sticky on the bottom. Now my kitchen is quite cold because I think we're at like a -10 this morning. Up here in northern lower Michigan. And there, it's starting to really look good. Now, what I'm looking for is, again, this dough to come off of the bottom and stop sticking. But if you see, I touch it and it's coming off in my hand, so it's still too sticky. So we're gonna need to add a bit more flour. Okay. Okay. Now I'm going to stop right here, because this has happened to many of you. When you're kneading it, it will break apart like that, and all of a sudden it'll go from a dough ball to being soft again. That's okay. That's just telling you that you need more flour. Okay, so we're gonna just sprinkle in another 2 tablespoons. Remember, It can take an extra cup. If you need an extra cup, it's going to take an extra cup. If you have a warm kitchen, it might need more than a cup. Just do little bits at a time so you don't overwhelm your dough and you don't add too much and end up with a really tough dough. And I promise you, the more you do this, the easier it will become. So just keep making those loaves of bread. Give them out to your neighbors. I used to send my boys' friends when they would come and hang out at the house. I would send bread home to their parents for dinner. Nice loaf of bread. That way I could make more bread the next day. And I just made bread every day, you guys, when I first started learning how to make bread. Keep adding little bits until you start seeing that dough ball come back together. Okay, so now you can see how that dough has come together. Now the knocking that you hear from my mixer is because I have an all metal gear mixer. If you have a Proline 7 and your mixer knocks, it's totally normal. I called Kitchenaid to make sure, and they're like, yes, that's exactly what it should do. Now mine's just a little bit still sticky because I can feel it sticking to my fingers. So I'm just going to sprinkle in just a little bit more, but you see how that's come together now? The dough is starting to clean up a little bit. The bowl is coming clean. And I'm just going to sprinkle in another tablespoon of dough. And then I'm going to shut it off, and then I'm going to feel it. And that feels really good. So slightly tacky, okay? It's okay if it sticks a little bit to your hand, but it's not coming off in my hand. I can touch it and my hands are clean. So that tells me my dough is ready to go. Now there is a window pane test that you can do with dough. I don't ever do that, but you can look into that if you want to do that. And now I'm going to set my timer, okay? So it's at this point that I go ahead and set my timer for 5 minutes. You might need 7 minutes to knead your dough. And then I'm going to let this knead for 5 minutes, and then I'm going to come back and we're going to get it out of the bowl. At this point, if it is no longer sticky, okay, it's not sticking on your hand, at this point your dough ball should not break apart. It should not get back soft. If it does, it just means it needs a little bit more flour and it just wasn't ready, okay? But at this point for me, my dough should be absolutely fine. I shouldn't have to add anything to it at this point. So I'm gonna let this knead at a level 2 for 5 minutes, and I'll bring you back when this is done. dough is done. So I'm going to scooch it back here and I'm going to show you what I do here. Okay, so I got some flour on my counter. You always want to make sure your counter, wipe down your counter with soap, you know, hot soapy water and all of that. And then I give it a quick wipe down, you know, just to get the flour off with a hot rag. You don't want to use any soap at this point. You just want to make sure that your counters are already clean, because you don't want any soap residue that you might have forgotten or not been able to get up. You can also dry your counter if you want. That's what I do. You just want to make sure that the surface that you're working on is super clean. All right, and then we're going to take this dough out of here. I'm going to take off my wedding ring here, and I'm going to take off the dough hook. Okay, just take off that. I throw that in the sink so I can wash it. And then you want a dough scraper. I will leave you a link down below to my dough scraper. I love this one because it's got several different sides and shapes that I can use for my bread, from cutting it to scraping it to dividing it. This is from Kitchenaid. It's a little Kitchenaid one, and I am loving it. It's pretty new to me and I've been obsessed. So you can just go into your bowl like that. You're going to scrape out your dough ball, okay? And your bowl should look relatively clean. So it's not going to be, when I say clean, I mean sometimes mine looks perfectly clean. It all depends on the day and the dough. But this is clean, okay? That means no chunks. It's not, you know, a lot of it's not stuck to the bottom. It's a nice dough ball. So what we're going to do with this is we are going to take our olive oil, all right? There we go. And we're just going to drizzle a little in there, okay? A tablespoon or so. And that's going to prevent our dough from sticking to the bowl when we put it in there. Now here's our dough ball, okay? Hopefully you guys can see that. Let me see if I can't aim you down a little bit. There we go, okay? Again, make sure your hands are perfectly clean. And now you're just going to hand knead this a little bit into a ball, okay? Oh, I miss hand kneading so much. My hands just can't tolerate it. So, but the little bit that I get to knead, the dough just feels so good. Okay, so now on the bottom, what I do is I pull and pinch the bottom, okay? And then I flip my ball over, all right? And then I just tuck. And as you're tucking, you're kind of pulling and stretching the top of the bread so it's nice, well, the dough I should say, so it's nice and smooth, okay? And so that you have a nice, beautiful dough ball, okay? And then what we're gonna do is we're gonna go ahead and upside down, we're gonna put our dough ball in, right? We're gonna give it a spin in the olive oil and flip it over. And now it's nice and coated in olive oil. The bottom will have some olive oil on it, and this won't stick as it rises, okay? What I do is I take a flour sack towel and I run it under really hot water, wring it out really well so it's not so, you know, just soppy wet. And then I cover my dough ball. And then what I do is I put because I've gotten this question. So my handle is in the back, okay? So in the front, I drape, okay? I pull, and then I'm going to spin it around towards my handle, which is hiding right here. Towards my handle, I take the excess and I tuck it into the handle. And then this way, it's, you know, you don't have a lot of excess towel. You know, you might have a little bit, but you can tuck that under. And I put this in my oven, I should say, with the light on, okay? The light on in your oven will give it just enough heat to help this rise, okay? Now I have a proof setting on my oven. It's one of the reasons why I got my oven. So the proof setting for me is perfect. So I just set it to proof. I also put my light on. And I tuck this in the back of the stove next to the light. And we're gonna let this rise for 30 minutes. Mine is gonna go in the oven now, and I will see you guys back here in 30 minutes. All right, you guys, so here we go. So here's our bowl. It's been 30 minutes. Now I'm gonna go ahead and change my my oven to preheat to 425. All right, and so that can heat up while we get our dough shaped. So here we have it. All right, it's risen beautifully. It's doubled in size. Really clean hands. We're gonna go ahead and deflate this like so, and then we're just gonna get it. So now you can use a rolling pin at this point if you want. I never do. I just use my hands. And I'm gonna shape this to the shape of like a nice rectangle because we are gonna divide this dough. Now remember, this is the same dough as the Italian bread. We are gonna shape this into 3 different loaves. So I just stretch it out. Sure it's kind of even. Like I said, you can use a rolling pin if you prefer. You can also weigh your dough if you want perfectly shaped baguettes, but you know what? I'm just a mom. And it's just not that deep for me. So we're just gonna do some beautiful baguettes for dinner tonight. I'm making breaded pork chops with some au gratin potatoes and some steamed vegetables, and serving it with a nice baguette and some butter. It's gonna be amazing. It's also good dipped in olive oil with a little salt and pepper. There's tons of ways that you can serve these baguettes. Okay, so here we have it. Let me kind of spin you around here and show you. And now we are going to cut it. So this is where a bench knife comes in handy. My scraper is in the wash, but you can use your scraper. Your scraper will have, if you buy a scraper, this is a really inexpensive one that you can get on Amazon. I'll try to leave a link down below. I have a link for bread baking over on my Amazon storefront that lists everything that I use for bread baking. But you would use this flat side right here. Or you can use a bench scraper, whichever one you prefer. We'll use the less expensive one because this is probably the one that most of you will have, right? If you're starting out. If you don't have anything, a pizza slice. Oh, let's use that. Because most people have a pizza slicer, right? So you can use a pizza slicer, all right? You can use a knife, whatever you have. So what we're gonna do is now we're gonna cut this into thirds, okay? And like I said, it doesn't have to be perfect. Okay, you just want to cut it in thirds. All right, and then what we're gonna do is we are gonna start rolling this up, okay? I always start with the edge, okay? And you're just gonna lift it and roll, okay? There's one. Okay, lift and roll, and then lift and roll. All right, and then you have 3 nice, 3 nice baguettes. Now, if you wanted to make a loaf of bread, you could braid this and it could be bread. You could also cut these up and shape them and they could be dinner rolls. But we're gonna do baguettes. All right, so what I do now is I'm gonna move these over. Okay. And so what I do is you want the bottom part where the seam is gonna be, okay? So you're gonna just pinch that seam into the dough. And the seam side is going to be our bottom, okay? And then this is going to help us not have that bread explode out of the side, okay? So there's our seam. We're going to roll it down, and then you're just kind of going to press it down lightly and roll that out. And so what that does is that will kind of smooth out that seam a bit, okay? If it needs to be pinched a little bit more, just pinch it a little bit more. Okay, and then roll it. All right, and then there is one, okay? So we're gonna set that off to the side. Let's do our second one here. We're gonna pinch the seam. And then press it out. If you do not have a baguette pan, you can just go ahead and use a cookie sheet. This, however, is a baguette pan. You can buy it by itself in a single pan like this with 4. You can buy it in 2. You can even buy it with 2 pans. So I bought a double pack. I got it on a lightning sale for $10.99 for 2, but they run usually about $20 for 2. I will leave the link down below to the one that I own. I have it in black. It also comes in golden and silver. It doesn't matter what color you get. They all work the same in my opinion. But that's what a baguette pan it looks like. And what's nice about it is that it keeps the shape of the baguettes. Now this is a pan that I wanted for a long time. I just never splurged to buy it. And I now regret that I didn't buy it sooner because I have been making baguettes every week. What we're going to do now is we're going to go ahead and we're going to put our baguette right onto the pan, okay? And this is where I'm going to tuck the ends of the dough in to make them look nice and pretty, okay? And then you're just going to shape them out so that, you know, one side isn't fatter than the other. Just squeeze and play with your dough until you get it the way you want it to look, so that your baguette, you know, tuck the ends in so they're nice and pretty. So we want our seam side. There's our seam. You see right there. You want the seam down in the center, okay? And then we are going to vent this bread by putting lines in it. I find that for baguettes, 5 lines is the best, 5 cuts. I'm using a bread lane, but you can use a steak knife or a serrated knife to do it. So what I like to do is I like to put 1 cut in the center and then 2 in front, 2 in back. You don't want to cut all the way through the bread. You just want to cut the tops. I want to say probably maybe 1/4 of an inch. You just want to make sure that you are venting that bread so that it can bake nice and even. All right, let's get an egg. Okay, so here is our egg, and we're just going to add about a teaspoon of water in there. These beautiful baguettes, a nice little egg wash. All right, so first thing I'm going to add is I've got some pretzel salt here. So on one of these, I'm going to just make a salted one. The kids really love the salted ones. The second one I'm going to do is an everything bagel seasoning. My family also loves this one. This one I'm going to do the minced garlic. This is how I get it. I buy mine from my my Mennonite bulk food store. So I'm just going to sprinkle some minced roasted garlic on here. The church brunch or anything like that, you know, you could bring the baguettes. Now to that one, I'm going to add just a little bit of the pretzel salt just to go with the garlic. Just offsets it really well. Not a whole lot. All right, so here we go. So there is our pretzel salt, our everything bagel, and our roasted garlic and pretzel salt. Now this is going to go in a 425 degree oven for about 20-25 minutes. For me, it's about 25 minutes. Keep an eye on it. You want to make sure that they're golden brown. If they're still light on the edges, like if they're a little golden brown on the top but white on the edges, I always leave it in for an extra 5 minutes until the whole thing is nice and golden brown. You don't want to burn it though, so keep an eye on it, okay? So 425 for 20 to 25 minutes. 30 minutes if your oven, you know, it doesn't bake as hot, until they come out, and they will sound nice and hollow. I'll show you how they should sound, and that's right, there they are in the oven. Now I'm going to set the timer for 10 minutes, and in 10 minutes I'm just going to flip that around, just so that they bake nice and even in my oven, and then I'll let them finish baking for another 15 minutes. There we have it. So this is the salt, everything, and then the garlic with the salt. I'll just pan you over there so you can see it, and then I'm just gonna put it right on this rack, and I'm gonna let them cool before you slice into them. Remember, you don't want to slice into bread when it's super hot, because the steam is the moisture. So what will happen to your bread is if you cut into it while it's still hot, it will become very dry. And so we don't want that. So it's okay to cut into it if it's still a little warm, as long as you can touch it and it doesn't burn your hand or anything. You can cut into it warm if you're gonna serve it right away, but otherwise you want bread to let it completely cool. That way it holds in the moisture content, and then the inside of your bread will be nice and soft, okay? And that's what you want. You want a nice hollow sound. Now there's the underneath of it where our seam is, and as you can see, nothing blew out, and that's because we put the seam on the bottom, and we made those slits in the bread, so they've been able to bake evenly and not implode and explode out the side. So I know that's a common problem. I know it's a problem that I dealt with, so I figured I would talk about it. So I'm gonna space those out so that they can kind of cool. All right, you guys, so showers are done. Everybody's up eating breakfast now, and we're ready to slice into this. I'm gonna slice into the salted one because the kids are gonna wanna taste it, and they love it. They love this one. So there it is. You should hear a nice hollow sound when your bread is done. And now I'm gonna cut into this. I like to slice these on the side, but you can cut them straight on if you want. And we will show you the inside. There you go. Look at how beautiful that is, right? And there is the bread. Now, Matt, tell everybody what you did with these yesterday for lunch. Was it yesterday or the day before? I can't remember. Oh no, it was the day before. It was the day before. So I'm gonna slice these nice and thin here. Listen how crunchy that is. It's a nice crusty crust, and the inside super soft.
I used a 5-cheese Italian blend and 2 different types of pesto. A pesto with sun-dried tomato, and then a traditional pesto with just the basil and garlic and olive oil. And I mixed the individual pestos with some of the Italian cheese, and then I spread it across the bread, and then I baked them in the oven and made pesto bread.
Oh, it was so good. That's what we had for lunch, right? Yeah. So there you have it. So I'm going to give a slice off to Matt, and he's going to slap some butter on it. But these are beautiful. You guys are going to love these. So that is it, you guys. I hope that was helpful. And this loaf is going to be gone within 10 minutes. All right, you guys, I hope you enjoyed this video as I eat my little slice of bread. I hope you give it a try. I'm so proud of all of you, and I'm so excited to be even just a little part of your bread journey. I'll be seeing you next week. Next week, we are going to switch gears a little bit. We're going to get a little more complicated, and we are going to make a really, really soft bread loaf. All right, so I'll see you then, and you guys take care. Bye, guys.